President Trump is claiming complete and total exoneration in the wake of the Mueller investigation, but how much vindication can or should President Trump claim before Attorney General Bill Barr releases the special counsel's report to Congress, which we believe is going to take place sometime next month?
Now, Kellyanne Conway had some answers for that to Chris Wallace. That's coming up in a couple of minutes. Meantime, we bring in country music legend and friend of President Trump, Larry Gatlin. Larry, good to see you as always.
Good to see you.
President got a little ahead of himself, saying it's total and complete exoneration when it's very clear that that's not what Barr's letter says.
Well, sometimes he speaks Trumpese. You know, you have
Is that what we're calling it now?
Well, I just made it up on the spur of the moment because you threw me a question I wasn't ready for, so I'm treading water. No, we know that in Texas we have a deal called "Don't let your alligator mouth overload your hummingbird rear end."
I'm not even sure what that means.
Well,
I got to think about that for a minute.
You got an alligator mouth. You're talking like this, and all these big, you know, pontifications, and you don't have enough gear to back it up. He does that sometimes. I understand that. We've been friends for 40 years. We're totally we get that. That's part of the paradigm. The simple matter of fact is that Robert Mueller said, hey, we didn't find anything. Deal with it. My question, you know, a long time ago, some old boys, preachers, brought this woman who had been caught doing something she wasn't supposed to do. And the master teacher, the rabbi, said, if you're without sin, you cast the first rock. That leaves the cowboy singer here out of the rock fight. You know what I mean? What I want to know is all of the shifty, if you're going to do some kind of inquisition on President Trump, what have you done for the last 30 years? Let's see your financial statements. Let's hear every conversation you've had with an aide or a donor or a lobbyist. Come on. This isn't fair.
Let me ask you this. You play at a lot of Trump rallies along with Lee Greenwood, who you're playing with tonight, I believe, in Frederick, Maryland.
Right.
So at these rallies, and especially at the one that President Trump was at last week, he came out very strong with sort of this revenge politics, talking about how he wanted this investigation into the origins of the special counsel's probe and all of that. But heading into 2020, that kind of talk could really alienate some of the swing voters that could help him win re-election. So what would you like to see President Trump do going forward? Continue to attack Democrats and everything surrounding the special counsel's investigation, or just move on?
Sure.
Which one?
Don't mess with success. That's his style. That's the way he's a New York businessman who is now the president. When he came down the escalator 3-4 years ago, I looked at my wife, who's the smartest woman. I mean, after all, she married me. I said, baby, there's your winner. She said, you're crazy. I said, he wins every time. So, like I say, sometimes, here's the deal.
Well, Larry, he may win or lose every time. He certainly had some business deals that have gone south. Reasonable people can agree on that. But he always claims victory. And he's claiming victory on the wall. He's claiming victory on taxes, claiming victory on the economy. How much runway do the folks that you talk to and play for give the president on the issue of repeal and replace Obamacare? Didn't happen. Build the wall hasn't happened, and Mexico certainly isn't paying for it.
Leland, you and I are policy wonks. We get this. I've been studying it since I was in the 8th grade. Most Americans are not policy wonks. They've got more money in their billfold. They see things happening. They see Syria and ISIS. Look, I will defend the man on policy. When he does the indefensible and says the indefensible, I'm not. Saul Bellow said, much intelligence can be invested in ignorance when the need for illusion is deep. In Texas, we say a lot of smart people do dumb crap when they're trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. I am not going to invest my intelligence and what reputation I have in this. He sometimes says unbelievable things. He won. This is his way. Do I wish that sometimes he would zip it a little bit? Yeah. But you're probably wishing I'd zip it right now. So we're even. He won. Don't mess with success.
So, that was great.
Kristen Fisher always wishes that I would just zip it.
I wasn't going to say it, but since you did, that's true. You spent a lot of time in Texas, right near the border. I'm wondering what you think about President Trump's threat to shut down the border entirely this week.
Well, I haven't seen all of the things that involved. He is we all know what his stand is on that. To stop the commerce, you know, I lived in Odessa. It's 280 miles from the border. We used to go over there and buy Jacques Clemente hot jalapeno peppers. It's the only place you can find. So that seems a bit draconian. There's a heavy-handed. But again, he is responsible for the safety of this country. The bad guys only have to be right one time. Look, if I were on the other side of the border...
If you shut down the border, all it does is shut down all of the good guys who are going to come in and the legal people. The bad guys and the illegal people aren't going to care that it's shut down.
I understand. It's not that simple. There is nuance. If that weight of that responsibility were on your shoulder and you're trying to uphold the laws of the United States of America and a border, you know, the people who don't want a wall, they live inside gated communities. I wonder if Nancy Pelosi's mansion that is guarded by a wall, if it were only a mile north of the southern border with California instead of 600 miles up in San Francisco, she might be singing a little bit different tune. We are faced...
Beto lives in El Paso, and he says he wants to take the wall down, so...
Beto is a booger-eating moron. Can you say that on TV?
Well, I don't know if you can.
I'm sorry. Let's bleep that.
All right,
Beto's an empty shirt.
Okay. Well, he seems to have the same colored shirt, so we'll leave it at that, Larry, and appreciate that. A big weekend for Democratic hopefuls on the trail, including Beto O'Rourke's kickoff rallies throughout his home state of Texas. We'll check in on some of those. Meantime, we are starting to see the president focus attention on battleground states. Evidence: his Michigan rally a few days ago, his Nevada trip coming up this week. Bring in Scott Tranter, co-founder, CEO of Optimist Consulting, Republican pollster. Too early yet to begin to look at Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania? Are we starting to see how the president will do against some of these Democrats?
It's not too early. I mean, the electorate is taking in a lot of information. These candidates are doing lots of campaign stops. They're getting themselves out to the electorate, so it's a good way to set the baseline, especially as fundraising picks up. And in Wisconsin, we see the first movement, a state the president won last time. He is now behind against candidates like Biden, potential candidates like Biden, candidates like Beto, and candidates like Bernie.
All right, so we've got the Wisconsin poll to look at. We also have Pennsylvania and Michigan that we'll put up there. This is Wisconsin. Joe Biden, 53-40.
Yeah, he is figured out, at least if he gets in the race, how to lock down that state against Trump. And that's probably due to his appeal to those middle-of-the-road voters that Trump was so able to lock up last time.
All right, we look at Michigan next here as we go through this list. And these are the three key states that President Trump flipped to win in 2016. Michigan, things are a little bit better for the president. And what's with the 39% on Beto O'Rourke?
So the 39% there is largely the fact that Beto O'Rourke was a phenomenon in Texas and among people, activists around the country, but relatively unknown in Michigan, unlike Biden, who's been on the ballot and been around, you know, so on and so forth. Beto, we'll see how he does.
Of these three states, the largest electoral gold pot is Pennsylvania.
Correct.
This is Biden's home state. No surprise he would be polling there very well. But Bernie Sanders also pretty close to the president, tied in your poll.
Yeah, well, and Bernie spent a lot of time there in the primary, spent a lot of time, cultivating those types of voters, especially in western Pennsylvania. Everyone thinks Philadelphia is Pennsylvania, and really the vast majority of voters and a lot of the electorate comes out of west of Philadelphia, where those coal miners are, where those blue-collar workers are.
You listen to the new Democratic talking points in terms of the way candidates are propositioning themselves. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, and now Beto in this very populist flag. Take a listen to Beto yesterday on the stump.
We must first ask ourselves how this, the wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet, has found itself in such a perilous position. For too long in this country, the powerful have maintained their privilege at the expense of the powerless.
Almost sounds like codified envy when you listen to it. Elizabeth Warren, add that to the list. Is this because they're polling sound bites and talking points like that and finding that that's what the Democratic base wants, or is it the other way around?
No, it's directly from the polling. We see it day in and day out, especially after AOC had the tax on millionaires, things like that. This stuff polls 60, 70, 80% among the Democratic electorate, and these are the votes these guys are going after right now. It also spurs fundraising.
We tie this back together. It's one thing if it polls well when it comes to the primaries, which is obviously where you've got Beto, Bernie, Warren trying to compete in. How does this poll with those swing voters in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan that you were talking to last week?
It remains to be seen. In places like Wisconsin, it doesn't poll as well. In places like Michigan and Pennsylvania, it's still a mixed bag. I mean, populism, if you don't have $10 million a year, you don't mind taxing people who make more than $10 million a year. So it seems like a safe bet. But we'll see what it trickles down when we start talking about things like Medicare for All, and we start talking about universal basic income, some of these more radical ideas that these guys are bringing out.
Yeah, and also how this stuff polls in Florida, Georgia, Texas, Arizona, states
exactly. Virginia, North Carolina, all these other battlegrounds.
All these other states that Democrats now think that they can flip. All right, Scott Tranter, appreciate it as always. Good to see you, my friend.